The ship came down through the clouds of Prime just as the sun was setting. Dr. Lucy watched from the window as the jungle world spread out beneath them, a sea of purple and green trees that stretched to the horizon. She had been waiting 3 years for this moment. 3 years of training, 3 years of studying alien cultures, and now she was finally here. Captain Jake stood at the front of the landing craft and looked at his team. There were 12 of them in total, scientists and soldiers and diplomats, all chosen for humanity's first peaceful contact with the species. "Listen up," Jake said. "They are one of the oldest species in this part of the galaxy. They have been traveling between stars for thousands of years. They have allies on dozens of worlds. If we make friends with them today, it opens doors for Earth that we cannot even imagine. If we make enemies of them, those same doors close forever." Lucy nodded along with the others. She understood the stakes. Humanity was new to space travel. They had only discovered faster-than-light technology 20 years ago. In the grand scheme of things, humans were children stumbling into a room full of adults. "The rules are simple," Jake continued. "Watch everything, touch nothing. Do not offend anyone. If you are not sure whether something is offensive, assume that it is and do not do it. Are we clear?" "Yes, Captain," the team said together. The landing craft touched down in a clearing at the edge of a village. Lucy felt her heart beating fast as the doors opened and warm, humid air rushed in. It smelled like flowers and rain and something else, something alien that she could not identify. They were waiting for them. Lucy had seen pictures and videos during her training, but nothing had prepared her for seeing them in person. They stood nearly 7 feet tall, with bodies that were both bird and human at the same time. Their arms ended in hands with long, clawed fingers, but they also had wings folded against their backs. Their faces were angular, with sharp beaks and large golden eyes that seemed to see everything at once. And their feathers, covering every inch of their bodies, shifted colors as they moved, flashing blue and green and gold in the fading sunlight. One stepped forward from the group. He was older than the others, his feathers faded to silver and gold, and he wore bands of woven metal around his arms that marked him as a leader. "I am Val," he said, and Lucy heard the words in English through her translator earpiece a moment after his beak clicked and whistled in his native tongue. "I am elder of this village and speaker for the sovereignty. We welcome the humans to Prime." Jake stepped forward and bowed his head in the way they had practiced. "I am Captain Jake. On behalf of Earth and all humanity, I thank you for this welcome. We come in peace and friendship." Val made a sound that the translator rendered as a pleased hum. "Come, we will show you our village. We will share food and drink, and we will talk of the future." The tour lasted for hours. Lucy walked beside the head of security as Val led them through the village. She saw homes built into the massive trees, connected by bridges of woven vines. She saw workshops where crafted tools and weapons with a skill that rivaled anything on Earth. She saw a great hall where hundreds could gather for meetings and ceremonies. And everywhere she looked, she saw feathers. They decorated doorways and hung from branches. They were woven into clothing and jewelry. They marked paths and boundaries. Lucy understood from her training that feathers were sacred to thee in ways that humans were only beginning to understand. As the evening grew darker, they came to a clearing near the center of the village. A group of young were playing there, chasing each other and making high-pitched sounds that might have been laughter. Lucy smiled as she watched them. They reminded her of children on Earth, full of energy and joy. "These are our cubs," Val said with obvious pride, "the future of our people." Lucy counted 17 of them, ranging in size from barely knee-high to almost as tall as her. Their feathers were softer and brighter than the adults, and they moved with a clumsy grace that made her heart warm. One of the cubs, a small one with soft blue feathers, noticed Lucy watching and stopped to stare at her. His golden eyes went wide with curiosity. "What is it?" he chirped, and the translator gave his voice a childish quality. "Why does it have no feathers?" Val made a soft clicking sound. "That is a human, little one. They are visitors from a world far away." "Is it cold?" another cub asked. "Without feathers it must be very cold." Lucy laughed. "I have clothes to keep me warm," she said, "and my world has buildings with heat inside." The cubs gathered around her, their fear quickly replaced by curiosity. They asked her questions about Earth, about humans, about why her eyes were so small and her beak was so flat. Lucy answered as best she could, charmed by their innocence. Then she saw it. A single feather lying in the dirt at the edge of the clearing. It was beautiful, bright crimson with a streak of black along its spine. It caught the last light of the setting sun and seemed to glow. Lucy, driven by the instinct of a scientist who had spent her life studying beautiful things, bent down and picked it up. The moment her fingers touched the feather, the world went silent. Every cub in the clearing stopped moving. Their eyes locked onto Lucy with an expression she could not read. Then, one by one, they lowered their bodies to the ground, pressing their faces into the dirt. Lucy stood frozen, the feather in her hand, not understanding what was happening. The adult had stopped talking. They were staring at her too, their feathers flashing colors she had never seen before. Val turned slowly, his golden eyes wide. "Human," he said, and his voice was barely a whisper. "Do you know what you have done?" Lucy looked down at the feather in her hand, then at the cubs prostrated on the ground, then at the shocked faces of her fellow humans. "I just picked up a feather," she said. "I did not mean to cause offense. I can put it back." "No," Val raised a clawed hand. "You cannot. What is done cannot be undone." Stepped forward, his hand moving toward his weapon. "What is going on here? Is this a threat?" "Not a threat," Val said. "Something else entirely." He took a deep breath, his feathers slowly settling to a dull gray. That feather belonged to, she was the hunt mother of these cubs. She died 3 cycles ago, killed by a storm beast while protecting the young. Lucy felt cold despite the warm air. "I am so sorry. I did not know. Please let me put it back. Let me fix this." Val shook his head slowly. "You do not understand. To lift a fallen leader's feather from the earth is to claim the right to lead in their place. It is the right of succession. It has been our law since before your species existed." The clearing was silent, except for the soft sounds of the cubs breathing against the ground. "The cubs have witnessed your claim," Val continued. "They have already accepted you. According to our oldest and most sacred traditions, you are now their hunt mother." Lucy stared at him, unable to find words. Jake pushed through the crowd, his face pale. "There must be some mistake. She is human. She cannot lead children." "There is no mistake," another elder said, stepping forward. Her feathers were stern gray and her eyes were hard. "The law is clear. It does not care about species. It cares only about the claiming." Lucy looked down at the small blue-feathered cub still pressed against the ground. He lifted his head just slightly and met her eyes. In his gaze, she saw fear and hope and desperate need. She looked at the feather in her hand, so small, so light, and yet it had just changed everything. Lucy stood in the clearing as the last light of day faded from the sky. The crimson feather was still in her hand. It weighed almost nothing, but she felt like she was holding a mountain. The cubs remained on the ground with their faces pressed into the dirt. None of them moved. None of them made a sound. They were waiting for something, and Lucy realized with growing horror that they were waiting for her. "Get up," she said softly. "Please, all of you get up." The cubs did not move. They stayed exactly where they were, as still as stones. Val watched her with unreadable golden eyes. "They will not rise until you command them to rise," he said. "That is the way of the hunt mother." Lucy felt her throat tighten. "I command you to stand up," she said, and her voice came out shaky and uncertain. Slowly, one by one, the cubs lifted themselves from the ground. They stood in a loose circle around her, their eyes fixed on her face with absolute attention. The smallest one, the blue-feathered cub who had asked why she had no feathers, stood closest to her. He was trembling. Jake pushed through the crowd of elders. His face was red and his jaw was tight. "Elder Val," he said, and Lucy could hear him working hard to keep his voice calm. "There must be some way to fix this. Doctor is a scientist, not a leader of children. She has duties to her mission, to her ship, to Earth itself. She cannot stay here and raise cubs." "I understand your concern," Val replied, "but you do not understand ours. There is not a ceremony that can be canceled. It is not a promise that can be broken. It is the foundation of our entire society." The gray-feathered elder stepped forward again. Her name, Lucy learned later, was Sar, and she was the keeper of traditions for the village. "Let me explain," Sar said. "When a hunt mother falls, her spirit does not simply disappear. It lingers in her feathers, in the very fibers of her being. When someone lifts that feather from the earth, they accept that spirit into themselves. They become the bridge between the fallen and the living." "But I am not," Lucy said. "I do not have a spirit that works that way. I am just a human." Sar tilted her head. "Are you certain of that? The cubs do not think so. Look at them. Look at how they watch you." Lucy looked. The 17 cubs were still standing in their circle, still staring at her with those huge golden eyes. And in those eyes she saw something that made her heart ache. She saw hope. She saw trust. She saw the desperate need of children who had lost their mother and were clinging to any promise of safety. "What happens if I refuse?" Lucy asked quietly. The question hung in the air like a blade. Val's feathers shifted to a dark blue. "If you refuse, the cubs will be marked as abandoned. No other hunt mother will take them because they have already accepted you. They will grow up without guidance, without teaching, without the rituals that shape young into adults. They will be outcasts for the rest of their lives." "That is cruel," said from behind Lucy. "You would punish children for something they had no control over." "It is not punishment," Sar said. "It is the natural result of a broken bond. The cubs have opened their hearts to this human. If she closes herself to them now, those hearts will never fully heal." Lucy looked at the blue-feathered cub again. He was so small, barely reaching her waist. His feathers were soft and bright and perfect. He had done nothing wrong. None of them had done anything wrong. They had simply seen her pick up a feather and believed with all the innocent faith of children that she would take care of them. "How long?" Lucy asked. "How long would I have to stay?" Val's feathers flickered with surprise. "You would consider this?" "I am asking the question, how long?" "Until they complete their rites of adulthood," Sar answered. 2 cycles of prime. In your human time, that would be approximately 14 months. 14 months. Lucy thought about her research, her career, her plans for the future. She thought about the ship waiting in orbit and her colleagues who would go on without her. She thought about everything she would be giving up. Then she thought about 17 children growing up as outcasts, because she had been too careless with her hands and too cowardly with her heart. "I need to speak with my captain," she said, "alone." Val nodded and gestured for the other to give them space. The elders moved away, though Lucy noticed they did not go far. The cubs stayed where they were, still watching her. Jake moved close to Lucy and dropped his voice to a harsh whisper. "You cannot be serious about this." "What choice do I have?" "You have every choice. We can leave right now. We can go back to the ship and pretend this never happened." "And condemn 17 children to a life of misery." Lucy shook her head. "I cannot do that, Jake. I know you think this is foolish, but I cannot do that." Jake ran a hand through his hair. "Lucy, think about what you are saying. You are not their mother. You are not even their species. You know nothing about raising cubs. You could make things worse." "Maybe," Lucy admitted. "But I can learn, I can try. That has to be worth something. This will change everything. The mission, the diplomatic relationship, everything we came here to do." I know. Lucy looked at the feather in her hand. But maybe this is what we came here to do. Maybe this is how humans and become allies. Not through treaties and speeches, but through one person standing up and taking responsibility. Jake stared at her for a long moment. Then he sighed. I will have to report this to command. They are not going to be happy. I know. And I am going to insist on a support team staying with you. At minimum, probably Ben as well for cultural guidance. Lucy nodded. That is fair. Jake turned to look at the cubs, still standing in their patient circle. His expression softened just slightly. They really do look like children, do they not? Alien children, but still children. They are children, Lucy said. That is the point. Jake was silent for another moment. Then he turned back to Val. Elder, Doctor has made her decision. She will accept the role of Hunt Mother. The effect was immediate. The cubs burst into excited chirps and whistles, their feathers flashing bright colors. Several of them rushed forward and pressed against Lucy's legs, wrapping their small wings around her in something that could only be described as a hug. The blue-feathered cub was the last to approach. He stopped in front of Lucy and looked up at her with those huge golden eyes. "You will stay?" he asked. "You will not leave us?" Lucy knelt down so she was at his level. "I will stay," she said. "I promise." The cub made a sound that was half chirp and half sob, and he threw himself against her, burying his face in her shoulder. His feathers were impossibly soft against her skin. Val approached and looked down at Lucy with an expression she could not quite read. "You have chosen a difficult path, human. Being a Hunt Mother is not easy, even for those who were born to it." "I did not choose this path," Lucy said. "The path chose me, but I will walk it anyway." "Then we will help you," Val said. "We will teach you our ways, our customs, our traditions. You will learn what it means to be, even if you never grow feathers." Lucy stood up, the blue-feathered cub still clinging to her side. She looked at the other cubs, at the elders, at her fellow humans watching with worried eyes. She had come to this world as a scientist. Now she was something else entirely. She was a mother, and she had absolutely no idea what she was doing. The first month was the hardest thing Lucy had ever done. She woke each morning before the sun rose, when the air was still cool and the jungle was filled with strange sounds. The cubs would already be awake, sitting in a neat row outside her small hut, waiting for her to begin the day. Their names came to her slowly. Was the small blue-feathered one who had first asked about her lack of feathers. He was shy and quiet and stayed close to her at all times. Was the oldest of the cubs, almost as tall as Lucy herself, with feathers of deep purple and green. She was proud and sometimes difficult, always questioning orders and pushing back against rules. There was who loved to climb. There was who sang to herself when she thought no one was listening. There were twins who could not be separated. There were 12 others, each with their own personality, their own fears, their own dreams. Lucy had to learn them all. She had to learn what made them laugh and what made them cry. She had to learn how to comfort them when they were scared and how to discipline them when they misbehaved. And she had to do all of this while also learning the language, the customs, and the hundreds of small rituals that made up daily life in the village. "You are doing it wrong," said one morning as Lucy tried to prepare the cubs' breakfast. "The grain must be ground in circles, not back and forth. Back and forth makes it bitter." Lucy stopped and took a deep breath. Had been challenging her since the first day, testing her authority at every opportunity. The other cubs watched to see how she would respond. "Show me the right way," Lucy said calmly. Blinked, surprised. She had expected an argument. Instead, she stepped forward and took the grinding stone from Lucy's hands. "Like this," she said, moving it in smooth circles. "You see, the motion matters as much as the pressure." Lucy watched carefully and nodded. "Thank you, I will remember." Later that day, found Lucy sitting alone by the river, rubbing her sore arms. "How are you holding up?" he asked, settling down beside her. I do not know, Lucy admitted. Some days I think I am starting to understand them. Other days I feel like I know nothing at all. The elders say you are doing well. Lucy laughed bitterly. The elders are being polite. I saw Sar watching me yesterday when I tried to teach the cubs about earth plants. She looked like she was watching someone try to swim by drowning. Smiled, give yourself some credit. You have only been here a month. No human has ever done what you are doing. That is not comforting. It should be. You are making history, Lucy. You are showing these people that humans can be trusted. That means something. Lucy looked out at the river. Purple fish swam beneath the surface, their scales catching the light. Everything on this world was so beautiful and so strange. I keep thinking about, she said quietly. He had nightmares last night. He woke up crying, calling for his old hunt mother. What did you do? I held him. I told him that she would always be with him in his heart. I told him that she was proud of him wherever she was. Lucy shook her head. I do not know if any of that is true. I do not know what believe about death, but it seemed to help. Then it was the right thing to say. The weeks passed and slowly, things began to change. Lucy learned that cubs were not so different from human children in many ways. They got hungry and tired and cranky. They fought with each other over toys and territory. They told jokes that did not make sense and laughed at things that were not funny. They needed discipline and guidance and love, just like children everywhere. But they were also different in important ways. They could see colors that Lucy could not see. They could hear sounds that were beyond her range. They could read emotions through subtle changes in feather position and body scent, which meant they always knew when she was nervous or uncertain, no matter how hard she tried to hide it. Lucy learned to be honest with them. She could not fake confidence, so she stopped trying. Instead, she admitted when she did not know something. She asked for their help when she needed it. She treated them as partners in learning rather than subjects to be commanded. The cubs responded to this approach, even began to soften, though she still argued about everything. One afternoon came to Lucy with a question. Why did you stay? She asked. You could have left. Your captain wanted you to leave. Why did you choose us? Lucy thought about the question carefully. Because you needed someone, she said finally, and I was there. Sometimes that is all it takes. But we are not your species. We are not your family. No, Lucy agreed. But family is not only about blood and species. Family is about choosing to care for each other, even when it is hard, even when it would be easier to walk away. Was quiet for a long moment, then she nodded slowly. I think I understand, she said. I think would have liked you. It was the first kind thing had ever said to her. Lucy treasured it like gold. In the third month, got sick. He ate a berry that looked harmless but was filled with poison. Within hours, he was shaking and feverish, his beautiful blue feathers going dull and gray. The healers came with their medicines and their chants, but they shook their heads grimly. The poison is strong, the lead healer said. We will do what we can, but you must prepare yourself, Hunt Mother. The little one may not survive. Lucy refused to accept that. She stayed at his side for 3 days and 3 nights, barely sleeping, barely eating. She held his hand when he cried. She sang to him when he could not sleep. She told him stories about Earth, about mountains and oceans and cities made of glass and steel. Tell me about the stars, whispered on the second night, his voice weak. Lucy looked up through the window of the healer's hut. The sky was filled with unfamiliar constellations, points of light that humans had only recently learned to name. The stars are suns, she said softly. Each one is a sun, just like the one that warms your world, and around many of those suns there are planets, worlds of every kind, worlds of ice and fire and water and stone. Are there people on those worlds? Some of them, yes. People who look different from you and different from me, but who feel the same things we feel, who love their children and fear the dark and hope for better days. closed his eyes. "I want to see them someday. I want to fly between the stars." "You will," Lucy promised. "You will see things that no one has ever seen before. But first you have to get better. You have to fight." On the third morning's fever broke. The healers called it a miracle. They said the poison should have killed him, but somehow his body had fought it off. Lucy knew the truth was simpler than that. Had fought because he had something to fight for. He had fought because someone was there holding his hand, telling him not to give up. When was strong enough to walk again, he came to Lucy and wrapped his wings around her in the hug his small body could manage. "Thank you, Hunt Mother," he said. "Thank you for not leaving me." Lucy held him close and let the tears fall down her face. She had come to this world as a stranger, but she was not a stranger anymore. She was exactly where she was meant to be. 8 months had passed since Lucy picked up the crimson feather. The jungle had gone through 2 seasons, the rains and the dry, and Lucy had changed along with it. Her skin was darker from the sun. Her muscles were stronger from the daily work of keeping up with 17 young, and her heart, she realized, was fuller than it had ever been. The cubs had grown too, was no longer the tiny, trembling cub who had asked about her lack of feathers. He was confident now, always asking questions, always wanting to learn more. Had become Lucy's strongest ally, defending her decisions to the other cubs and helping to maintain order when things got chaotic. They had become a family, strange and unexpected as it was. Then the storm beast came. It was who saw it first. He had been climbing a tall tree at the edge of the training valley when he spotted the creature moving through the distant jungle. He came down so fast he nearly fell, his feathers puffed out in pure terror. "Hunt Mother," he gasped, running to Lucy. "A storm beast in the eastern forest coming this way." The words sent ice through Lucy's veins. She had learned about storm beasts in her months on Prime. They were the apex predators of this world, massive creatures with 6 legs and scales like black glass. Their fangs dripped with venom that could paralyze a full-grown in seconds. And they were smart, smart enough to hunt in patterns, smart enough to remember where prey could be found. The training valley was where the cubs spent most of their days. The storm beast was not coming this way by accident. Lucy gathered the cubs quickly and led them back to the village. She found Val and told him what had seen. The elder's feathers went pale. "A storm beast," he said quietly. "Are you certain?" "Saw it clearly. He knows what they look like." Val was silent for a long moment. Then he called for the village warriors to gather. Within an hour, a hunting party had been assembled, 20 with spears and bows, and the hard look of people who knew they might not return. "The Hunt Mother must lead the defense," Sar announced. "That is the tradition." Lucy felt her stomach drop. "I am not a warrior. I have never fought anything in my life." "Nevertheless, the cubs are your responsibility. If the beast attacks them, you must be there to protect them. That is the law." Stepped forward. "I will go with her, and I will bring my weapon." He patted the pulse rifle on his hip. Sar's feathers flickered with disapproval. "Human weapons are not part of our traditions." "Your traditions did not account for humans being Hunt Mothers," replied evenly. "Times change. We adapt or we die." Val raised a hand before the argument could continue. "The human speaks wisdom. Let him bring his weapon. Let the Hunt Mother lead in whatever way she sees fit. The only thing that matters is that the cubs are protected." They set out that afternoon. The training valley was a wide bowl of grass surrounded by rocky hills. It was a good place to teach young how to hunt and track and fight. It was also, Lucy realized with growing dread, a good place for a predator to trap its prey. She positioned the warriors on the hills, creating a defensive ring around the valley. The cubs were placed in the center, behind the heaviest fighters, stood beside Lucy, his rifle ready. "You do not have to do this," he said quietly. "No one would blame you for staying back with the cubs." "Yes, they would," Lucy replied. And more importantly, I would blame myself. These are my children. I am not going to hide while others fight for them. The storm beast attacked at dusk. It came from the eastern ridge, a shadow made solid, moving faster than anything that size should be able to move. Lucy had seen pictures of the creatures, but nothing had prepared her for the reality. It was 3 meters tall at the shoulder, with scales that seemed to drink the light. Its eyes were yellow and hungry, and when it opened its mouth, she saw fangs as long as her forearm. "Hold positions," Lucy shouted. "Wait for my signal." The beast charged down the hill toward the center of the valley, toward the cubs. The warriors on the flanks moved to intercept, but they were too slow. The creature was going straight for the children. Lucy did not think, she ran. She sprinted across the grass, pulling a flare from her belt as she moved. She had practiced this 100 times with, hoping she would never need to use it. Now she was grateful for every repetition. The storm beast was 50 meters from the cubs, then 40, then 30. Lucy planted her feet and fired the flare directly into the creature's face. The burst of light and heat made the beast scream. It stumbled, its charge broken, and turned its burning eyes toward Lucy instead. "That is right," Lucy said, her voice somehow steady. "Come after me." The beast lunged. Lucy dove to the side, rolling across the grass as massive claws tore through the air where she had been standing. She came up running, leading the creature away from the children, buying time for the warriors to close in. The storm beast was fast, but Lucy was desperate. She ran like she had never run before, dodging and weaving, using every rock and tree as cover. Behind her, she could hear the warriors shouting, organizing their attack. Then her foot caught on a root and she fell. The beast was on her in an instant. She looked up and saw those yellow eyes, saw those venom-dripping fangs descending toward her face. In that moment, she thought about and all the others. She thought about how much she loved them and how sorry she was that she would not be there to see them grow up. Then struck from above. The purple-feathered cub had climbed the rocks while everyone was watching Lucy. She dropped from the highest point with a ceremonial spear in her hands, driving the weapon deep into the storm beast's spine. The creature screamed and twisted, trying to shake off its attacker. A dozen warriors piled onto it from all sides, stabbing with spears and slashing with claws. Fired his rifle, 3 quick shots that punched through the beast's thick hide. The storm beast fell. Lucy lay on the grass, her whole body shaking, ran to her side and helped her sit up. "Hunt, Mother," said, her voice cracking with emotion. You almost died for us." "That is what mothers do," Lucy whispered. "They protect their children, no matter what." The other cubs rushed forward, surrounding Lucy in a mass of soft feathers and trembling wings. They clung to her and made sounds of relief and joy, and Lucy held as many of them as she could reach. Pushed through the crowd and pressed himself against Lucy's side. "You did not fly away," he said. "You could have run, but you stayed and you fought." "Of course I stayed," Lucy said. "You are my family, I will always stay." That night, after the healers had treated her bruises and cuts, Val came to her hut. In his hands he held a single feather, brilliant silver and gold, plucked from his own crest. "This is the highest honor I can give," he said. "You have proven yourself, Hunt Mother. You have shown courage that many could not match." Lucy took the feather and held it carefully. "I only did what was necessary." "No," Val said. "You did what was impossible. A human with no claws, no fangs, no wings stood against a storm beast to protect children who were not even her own species. That is not just courage. That is something else entirely." "What is it?" Val's feathers shifted to a warm gold. "It is love," he said simply. "The kind of love that does not care about boundaries or differences. The kind of love that we thought only we could understand." He bowed his head to her, a gesture of deep respect. "Perhaps we were wrong about humans," he said. "Perhaps you have more to teach us than we realized." Lucy looked at the silver feather in her hands, then at the crimson one still wrapped around her wrist. 2 feathers, 2 burdens, 2 gifts. She was not the same person who had stepped off that landing craft 8 months ago. She had become something new, something she never expected. She had become a bridge between worlds. 14 months after Lucy picked up a single crimson feather, she stood in the great hall of the village and watched her cubs become adults. The ceremony had been prepared for weeks. Flowers and ribbons decorated every surface. Thousands had traveled from distant villages to witness the rite, and in the center of it all, 17 young stood in a line, their feathers groomed to perfection, their eyes bright with excitement and fear. Lucy stood beside Val on the raised platform at the front of the hall. She wore a ceremonial robe that the village weavers had made for her, decorated with patterns that told the story of her time as Hunt Mother. The crimson feather was still wrapped around her wrist, and the silver one from Val was woven into her hair. "Are you ready?" Val asked quietly. Lucy looked at her cubs, and all the others. They had grown so much in the past 14 months. They were not the frightened children she had first met. They were strong and confident and ready to face the world. "I am ready," she said, "but I do not think I will ever be ready to say goodbye." Val made a soft sound of understanding. That is how it should be. A Hunt mother who does not grieve the leaving of her cubs is no true mother at all. The ceremony began. One by one, the cubs stepped forward to receive their adult names and clan markings. Each one was asked to speak about what they had learned during their time as young, and each one talked about Lucy. Spoke about courage. "The Hunt mother taught me that bravery is not about being unafraid," he said. "It is about being afraid and doing the right thing anyway." Spoke about kindness. "She treated us as equals," she said. "She listened when we spoke. She learned our songs and sang with us. She made us feel like we mattered." And spoke together about family. "We always had each other," said, "but the Hunt mother taught us that family can grow, that strangers can become sisters and brothers if we open our hearts." Then stepped forward. He was no longer the tiny blue-feathered cub who had trembled at the sight of her. He stood tall now, his feathers deep and rich, his golden eyes steady. But when he looked at Lucy, she saw the child he had been, and the man he was becoming. "When I first saw the Hunt mother," said, "I thought she was strange. She had no feathers. She could not fly. She did not know our ways or our words. I did not understand why she had been chosen to lead us." He paused, collecting himself. "Then she stayed with me when I was sick. She held my hand and told me stories about the stars. She did not leave me, even when the healers said I might die. And I understood then that feathers do not make a mother. Wings do not make a protector. What makes a mother is love. What makes a protector is the willingness to stand between danger and those you care for." Turned to face Lucy directly. "Hunt Mother Lucy, you taught me to be brave. You taught me to be kind. You taught me that the universe is bigger than I ever imagined and that there is a place in it for me. I will carry your lessons for all my life, and I will pass them to my own cubs someday. Thank you for everything." Lucy felt tears streaming down her face. She did not try to stop them. Finally stepped forward. She was the last of the cubs, the oldest and the proudest. Her purple and green feathers caught the light of the hall, and she moved with the grace of someone who knew exactly who she was. "I did not trust the Hunt mother at first," said. "I challenged her. I questioned her. I made her life difficult because I thought she did not deserve to lead us." A murmur ran through the crowd. "I was wrong." His voice was clear and strong. "The Hunt mother proved herself in ways that I did not expect. She did not try to be. She did not pretend to be something she was not. She was human, and she led us as a human, with human wisdom and human love. And that made her better than any Hunt mother could have been." She turned to Lucy. "When the storm beast came, I was afraid. I thought we were all going to die. Then I saw you running toward the beast, drawing it away from us, risking your life for hours. and I knew what I had to do. I climbed the rocks and I jumped because you showed me what courage looks like. You gave me a target to aim for. Walked to the platform and knelt before Lucy. I named the brave, pledge my loyalty to you, Hunt Mother Lucy, not because tradition demands it, but because you have earned it, today and always. The hall was silent for a long moment. Then, one by one, the other 16 cubs came forward and knelt beside. Today and always, they said together. Lucy looked at them, at these beautiful young people she had helped raise, and she felt her heart might burst. Val stepped forward and raised his hands. People of the sovereignty, he said, his voice carrying across the hall. Today we have witnessed something extraordinary. A human, a member of a species we had barely heard of a cycle ago, has proven herself worthy of our deepest respect and gratitude. He turned to face the crowd. For generations, we believed that honor and leadership were written in feather and claw. We believed that only could truly understand what it meant to be. This human has shown us how wrong we were. Leadership is written in the heart. It is written in courage and sacrifice and the willingness to love without limits. The crowd murmured agreement. Therefore, Val continued, by the authority vested in me as elder of this village and speaker for the sovereignty, I declare that the human Dr. Lucy is no longer an outsider. She is no longer a guest. She is in all ways that matter. She is family. The hall erupted in cheers and song. Lucy stood on the platform as from across the village came to touch her hands and express their respect. She saw Jake, and in the rest of the human delegation watching from the side of the hall, their faces filled with pride and wonder. Later, after the ceremony ended and the crowds dispersed, Lucy walked alone to the edge of the village. She found a quiet spot overlooking the jungle and sat down on a flat rock. The sun was setting, painting the sky in colors of purple and gold. Strange birds sang in the trees. Somewhere in the distance, she could hear the cubs laughing together, celebrating their new status as adults. Found her there. Hunt Mother, he said, settling down beside her. Why are you sitting alone? I was just thinking, Lucy said. About what? Lucy looked at the feathers wrapped around her wrist. About how strange life is. 14 months ago, I was a scientist on a routine mission. I had plans. I had goals. I knew exactly where my life was going. And then you picked up a feather. And then I picked up a feather. Lucy smiled. Everything changed because I bent down and touched something beautiful without thinking about the consequences. Do you regret it? Lucy looked at his bright blue feathers and his golden eyes and his gentle, curious spirit. No, she said, I do not regret it for a single moment. Picking up that feather was the best thing I ever did. Leaned against her side, and Lucy put her arm around him. Will you come back and visit us? He asked. Every chance I get, Lucy promised. You cannot get rid of me that easily. They sat together in silence, watching the stars come out one by one. Far above them, the starward Hope waited in orbit, ready to take Lucy home to Earth. But Earth was not her only home anymore. She had a family on 2 worlds now, connected by bonds stronger than blood or species. She had come to Prime as a stranger and an outsider. She was leaving as something else entirely. She was leaving as a mother, as a leader, as a bridge between stars. And it had all started with a single feather lying in the dirt. Sometimes the smallest things change everything.